I guess what I can do, Mr. Thayes, is I can kind of tilt this thing sideways so I don't have my back to you.
No, I don't mind.
Well,
You would have been the first person.
Yeah.
Back to me, so.
There we go. Let me, is it just one file in here? Do you?
No, there's a few. But there's
No, but I'm talking about as far as this case, or do you have other stuff in
Oh,
there?
no, it's a folder that says Hoffman.
Let me pull it up here real quick so I see what I'm looking at. Okay, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There should be about 16.
16. Yeah, there's 16 files here. Let me just make sure. To play this video, you need a new codec.
You can't play it. Because they're in MP4 format, so it would be any media player. Oh, that's fine. I'll do like a Dropbox or something.
Do you have your laptop with you? That one?
This one, I can play it on this one.
Yeah, we may have to do that.
I just don't know how great the Wi-Fi will be here.
Oh, yeah, that might be a problem because we're. Why do you need the Wi-Fi? Can't you hook this up to your?
Oh yeah, I can hook it up and play it here.
Yeah, that way.
I was just trying to say so that we could, like Mr. Henry. The thing is,
Oh,
it's 1 gigabyte, and it's too big of a file to email. Even if I email the individual files, the video is way too big. Do you see what I'm saying?
What? Well, and
I don't
maybe
think I'll need it, but if it comes up.
I mean, if you feel you need it, I mean, well, you can all tell me what's in there. Did you send a copy of this to Mr. Henry?
No, that's what I'm saying. It was too big of a file.
But Mr. Henry, can you hear us?
Yes, Your Honor, I can.
Did he discuss with you the files? I guess they're video files yesterday.
No, Your Honor.
They're basic videos of the site to give perspective of what's going on and what's pending. But Mr. Henry was actually there last Thursday.
Can I have? Do I need to have Mr. Wolf twice, or is it one?
I think one is Adi, one is his son Adi.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Well, no, he's logged on separately. Well, we'll let him figure it out. But there may be echo if he has
Yeah.
both.
Yes.
Okay, is everyone ready to go? Let me call the case and then we'll get the appearance of the attorneys and then is everyone ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The court calls 2021 CDK 507D1, the matter of Hoffman versus Laredo International Airport, City of Laredo. Can I have the appearance of the attorneys, please?
Joey Davis on behalf of Mr. Wolf Hoffman.
Your Honor, I can't hear counsel.
Joey Davis on behalf of Mr. Wolf Hoffman.
Brian Henry on behalf of the City of Laredo.
Is your office going to be doing anything here, Mr. Theus?
No, they're taking notes.
Okay, that's fine. Before we begin, I just want to make sure, I'm assuming that the last topic or the last issue we have are the planes. The last time we spoke, I think I guess the personal effects or what I call other stuff had been taken care of. The chemicals should have already been removed, and the bonded merchandise there any issues with the bonded merchandise?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes,
And I'm assuming there's still issues with the plane?
the planes, yes.
Yes, Your Honor. There is still some personal effects there, but they're significantly less than they have been in the past.
Effects could be, or I guess what we call regular goods. The office just emailed everybody about 2 minutes ago, a Word document with a breakdown of everything that's pending. I will hand a printout to the court. And the regular goods should be done, if not tomorrow, by today. The hazardous materials are all gone, although it just depends on.
Your Honor,
Yeah, you need to speak up, Mr. Diaz.
I can't hear him. It's like every other fourth word that I'm getting.
Maybe you can pull your chair up here on the side.
I'll move.
Bring the chair around.
Here's it was an updated, and we individually itemize all the airplanes.
No, but does Mr. Henry have a copy of this?
My office just emailed it to everybody. The hazardous.
I just received it, Your Honor.
Have you?
Yes, just now. Your Word document?
Yes, it's a one-page Word document. The hazardous materials are done. The only issue with the hazardous materials was that there are certain things that aren't technically hazardous materials, but can be called hazardous materials per the guidelines or handbook of the City of Laredo Airport.
Such as?
Rust preventative additive to paint, which isn't a listed hazardous materials, but the City of Laredo Airport Police thinks that it is. But that was removed anyway. That was the only thing that was pending as of last week.
So, I mean, am I hearing that the chemicals are all gone?
Yes.
That does appear to be the case, Your Honor.
Okay. And there's an indication that the other stuff is 90% complete?
These were vehicles, personal vehicles that they're being moved off-site as we speak.
But once the vehicles were removed, would that constitute 100%?
Yeah. And Mr. Henry can correct me or.
Mr. Henry, does that sound right?
I don't have the full inventory of what is the FTZ property, Your Honor, so it's a little hard to tell what is the personal and what is the FTZ. So I can't really say one way or the other at this point.
So, and what's happening with the FTC?
We have an application pending with the City of Laredo. City of Laredo has not approved it or denied it since last week. They were supposed to approve it or deny it. The city official said that they would give us an answer in 48 hours. We are way past it. We have not, and I've asked Mr. Hoffman to get written confirmation of other people telling him in writing that they don't want to lease out their FTZ warehouse area. But that is our biggest holdup right now.
So all of the bonded material is still in the warehouse?
Some of it is gone, but not all of it. About 50% of the bonded material. Mr. Hoffman can correct me if I'm wrong. It's about 50 to 60% is still there.
So the application you made is the one to move it.
Well, the application is to create the new FTZ area, but it's just a matter of them approving it or not.
And I think we covered this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yep. Didn't the city kind of preemptively advise you that they didn't want to work with Mr. Hoffman anymore? So
the part that I guess we agree to disagree on is the way that the FTZ application process was written. If he meets the qualifications, the city should approve the application. There's very little discretion other than if they have good reason to believe that he's involved in smuggling or counterfeiting or some illegal activity. But if the city wants to reject it, I've told Mr. Henry I'd be more than happy to amend my petition when the city rejects it, because it's more of a ministerial duty of them approving this application. It's not whether they like the guy or not. And that's
We will agree to disagree, because that's not what the standards or the law are.
I was about,
There is, Your Honor.
and so the other applications you're talking about are the third-party FTZ zones that won't accept yet the other half of the bonded material. Is that correct?
yes.
Just for clarification, Your Honor, those don't require applications. He just has to
Leave-
get with the warehouse owners to see if they will or won't take it. The city isn't involved in that part.
How, and we're talking about half of what was originally there the last few times we met or convened on this case?
Approximately, yes.
I mean, how much square footage are we talking about, or bulk size, or however you measure it?
You're talking about 6 hangars, 3 on each side.
No, I'm talking about the material.
Well, there's 6 hangars, 3 on each side. The FTZ stuff occupied the first one on the southwest corner of the property, and then part of the one across the driveway that's in between the 2 hangars. So it occupied, FTZ stuff occupied approximately 2 out of 6 hangars.
Who took the other half, the one that's missing? They weren't capable of taking it all?
No, we had made arrangements with the people the customs brokers, but there's still stuff that's pending that we can't find a place to put.
I know, who was it that accepted the other half, or was it multiple third parties?
Mr. Hoffman, my understanding was it was multiple parties that were able to move the stuff and get it on its way. Is he frozen or is he?
I think he's on mute.
No, he's on mute, but okay, there he is.
I was asking whether,
Yes, Your Honor.
was it multiple parties that accepted the first half that's been removed?
That was the first half that was removed. It was not bonded. In the same FTC zone, we had a section of non-bonded merchandise with the approval of U.S. Customs, and the other half was bonded. So the non-bonded merchandise was completely removed. The bonded merchandise has not been removed. We applied, we spoke with some people that we know that have the FTZ, but of course, none of them want to store merchandise that does not belong to them, because then they're gonna be liable, like in front of U.S. Customs for merchandise that originally didn't come to them. It's coming from another source. I would do the same thing, Your Honor. I wouldn't accept merchandise that comes from another source. This is technically, usually bonded warehouse, an FTZ or a bonded warehouse receives merchandise that comes directly from overseas to the warehouse, not from another warehouse.
So, I mean, if I understand what you're telling me, you're never going to be able to find another FTZ zone here in Laredo to accept what you still have in the hangar.
Well, the plan, Your Honor, is once we finish with what that the court requires, which is moving all domestic merchandise, which we have done, and all the vehicles and all the equipment, is to analyze each and every single lot to see what can be destroyed with the approval of U.S. Customs in order to minimize the lots that we have to move.
Wait, say that again.
Once once we finish moving the equipment and the cars and the domestic merchandise is gone, we're moving we're completely moving out cars and equipment that we have down there, like a paint shop,
I-
other stuff. So what the plan is to analyze each and every single lot that we have on the FTZ to see what can be destroyed in order to avoid, in order to minimize the lots that we have to move to another warehouse. It's going to be easier to find
But you're,
someone that probably can take it or sell it, being a, but way discounted price for a minimum lots that we can save, and the other one just toss it to the garbage to be destroyed with the approval of U.S. Customs.
but what I'm hearing is that you're not going to, based on what you're saying, that you wouldn't accept somebody else's FTC property. You're not going to be able to find someone then in Laredo to take this bonded material. Or merchant.
Well, yes, eventually we will find, Your Honor, but at the same time that we've, trying to move the FTZ, we've been busy moving all the other merchandise that the court ordered for us to do. So it's a matter of complying with one thing at a time and then move to the other item. We cannot do everything at the same time. It's too much. It's 40 years of storing a lot of merchandise and a lot of equipment.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but if it hasn't moved in 40 years, then I don't know what value it has to anyone. Even if it is, I mean, I don't know how long you hold on to this, but a little while ago, you were just telling me that you're not able to find anyone locally to take the bonded merchandise. Why do you?
Custom brokers, I'm sorry, the custom brokers that we've approached still are not happy with that, but that's not the end. I mean, we will continue looking for that, and the FTZ merchandise is not 40 years old, but we had a lot of equipment that is installed that we have to remove that is 20-30 years old, like big compressors, big hydraulic pumps, and so forth that we use for the airplanes, Your Honor.
I guess that's what was the point of the videos, Judge, was that some of these items are not easily movable. Like we're talking about really fixtures, or not even fixtures, like he has, like, for example, in the hangar, he has a welding shop. So there's welding equipment. And another spot they have where they paint the actual parts of the airplane. And so those have the individual pieces, and the pieces aren't just like a printer. These are equipment that are 6 feet, 7 feet tall, 8 feet wide, and weigh a certain amount. But those can't necessarily be moved if we're trying to move. We're going to be disassembling with the airplanes. And we run into the other part, and I spoke with Mr. Henry, and so we need the representation of moving the airplanes. We can move airplanes if we get access to the tarmac, because the gates that go into the hangar are not wide enough to allow access to get the airplanes out. And but there's a way where the hangar is located, there's a way to enter into the property through the side, but you still got to get permission to get onto the tarmac, and the city won't give them that. And so we're trying to find a way where if we can get access, and I've talked to Mr. Hoffman about it yesterday and Mr. Henry about it, is we're going to get detailed plans of, hey, we need access for this period of time, and make sure that everything gets done timely.
So, I mean, I might understand that there's been very little of any progress on the removal of the planes.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Because to get them out, you need to get them through the airport.
Well, yeah, I mean, we covered that last, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Has the moving company that moves planes been contacted?
I spoke to them, well, the specific one that the city had mentioned, I spoke to them yesterday, Your Honor. He basically said at the time I spoke with him that he hadn't heard from Mr. Hoffman, but I don't know if Mr. Hoffman's contacted anybody else. The city hasn't been notified that anyone was going to come in and start disassembling any planes yet.
Well, is this going to be an issue for temporary access of the moving folks to get the planes out? And I know they have to be disassembled.
Yes, Your Honor, and that's specifically what I spoke to Whistler Aviation. That's the one that gave us the quote last time. After I spoke to Mr. Tejas, and what Whistler said is that essentially they've seen the aerials and they have the measurements. They said they're very familiar with these particular planes. They believe they can actually disassemble them where they stand and not necessarily need access to the tarmac. However, they said if in fact when they get in there they would need to move things around in order to access them, they would be able to tell us exactly how long it would take and move what plane where, how long it take to disassemble and move it out. According to Whistler, they said they try and avoid doing work on active ramps to minimize disruption. So he believes it can be done like on the property itself, but to the extent it can't, we just need to know which plane is going in, how long it's going to take, so we can kind of adjust and make arrangements for pulling it out, but keeping it out of the way while we're, the ramp is being used by other airplanes, and making sure there's no accidental crossovers or anything like that. We haven't received anything from Mr. Hoffman detailing exactly the schedule or the timing, but that's what Mr. Tejas and I spoke about yesterday.
And what's the timing looking like?
When Mr.
Well-
told me yesterday before I spoke to him, so obviously I don't know who the Whistler, especially spoke to at Whistler, but he had said his initial conversation was per plane, it would take at least 6 days per plane to move them. But I mean, that was when I spoke with Mr. Henry. I didn't speak to him after that, where this new conversation is coming up.
So,
And by the way,
Mr.
that,
Taylor, who have you all contacted? I mean, I know the city is indicated they contacted Whistler.
we can move them relatively quickly, Judge. And that's why I wanted to show the video of where we're at, because this idea that the tarmac access we're talking about doesn't interfere with the runway. Where he is at, he is isolated from the
When
area
you
that's
say
used,
you can move them relatively quickly,
if we get access to the tarmac. And this is, I don't know.
why is this an issue? Just having given them access, if they're gonna, let's say they were gonna start moving on Thursday. And when you say relatively quickly, Mr. Theus, what does that mean?
Well, we can move them, but the thing is, we've always been told no. And so this is, what I'm trying to get is.
I know, but
video.
I'm asking for a timeline.
Well, Your Honor, that's kind of what we had asked. We sent Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Miller sent Mr. Hoffman a letter in April, basically saying, if you want access, we need to know what plane, what's wrong with it, how long it's going to take you. We have to figure out if it's a minor repair, a major repair, that kind of stuff. We haven't gotten any timelines from him as to how long he was going to, take up any portions of the tarmac or anything else like that. That's what the city needs in order to grant access. We haven't said no. We said we need to know more information about it and how long you're going to take it up and what the schedule is like.
I thought we were talking about how much time it's gonna take to just get them out of there.
Yeah. And the getting them out of there, according to Whistler, would take 6 days per plane, but he actually said he can do more than one at once. But he did say, depending on how tight it gets, he may only be able to He can disassemble more than one at once, but he may only be able to put one on a truck at once and pull it out. So, but he hasn't been contacted or contracted with Mr. Hoffman, and we haven't received anything that Mr. Hoffman's got anybody else that's planning on coming in there, or that if someone else is coming in there that they can't do it inside and they need it on the tarmac.
Did
So-
Whitmer ever say how many people, how many staff that they would use to do it?
No, he didn't mention the staff levels.
Did
He's bringing his own
Well,
people.
no, I mean, that's fine, but how many people is he gonna bring? Is he gonna bring 6, 5, 20? Like I'm just curious about how many people, what is the specific manpower that he thinks he can get it done in 6 days?
He didn't discuss the manpower. He just said, this is the price and we can get it done in 6 days per plane.
Okay.
And Mr. Teso, what preparations have you all done to start moving these planes?
We're still finishing getting everything else out. There's about 6 to 7 employees that Mr. Hoffman has that are working full-time within the 7 hours that we are given to move items out of the airport. It's not something that can be done 24/7 because of the limitations of the access we got. They're moving stuff by flatbed, by whatever vehicles they gotta get it, and we're getting all the other stuff out that I know that bothers the city as far as getting stuff that has nothing to do with the planes completely off, clearing the area of attractive nuisances for wildlife. I spoke with Mr. Henry about that, but we're trying to get everything within the parameters of time and the number of employees he's got. Because those employees would all just shift to getting the airplanes out. And so either I mean, that's where we run into problems is how many more people do we need to hire in order to get a move, but we don't have anywhere necessarily to move certain things.
Well, I understand all of that, but
And the other issue is I understand the court's consternation but we run into an issue where we have an eviction order that never really gave us a timeline. And so we're back and forth with something that in a hearing in November, they could have said you needed to be out in the agreed order by this date.
I thought that agreed order indicated 15 days.
No, it said no. As soon as possible.
Oh, well, maybe I'm thinking of another case.
It gave a very vague, as soon as, I don't remember, Mr. Henry can correct me with the exact wording, but it said as soon as possible or.
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing today is that we at least have one company, and I can't order Mr. Hoffman to use one company or another, but I mean, worst case scenario for at least one company is we're talking about 60 days. And the indication is that they can actually do it quicker because they can start disassembling 2 or 3 planes at a time.
We disagree with that.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Your Honor. It's 6 days per plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. 10 planes, 60 days. I get it. My apologies, Your Honor.
But then he says that, yeah, they may disassemble them, but it may not necessarily be the transportation of them, depending on size.
Yeah, no, they'll be prepping other planes to move as they're moving one, is what they're saying. But
well, that's what Mr. Henry is saying that they're saying. We have no witness to testify that that's a legit.
Yeah, but the thing is that I'm not hearing that any steps have been taken to remove the planes. And you're telling me, well, we can't do everything at once, but actually, I mean, that was kind of the order that everything needed to start. You needed to make headway on everything, not just the personal stuff and the bonded and the chemicals. I'm glad to hear that the chemicals are done and half the bonded. And it looks like the personal stuff, 90%,
Can I approach the court, Your Honor?
Hoffman, let me deal with this, please.
Okay. I just want to show some light into what the airplanes entices, because this is highly technical. Okay.
Again, I realize it is highly technical, but I was expecting, you know, information that, you know, we've already priced the different companies that can move it. They're telling us this, they can be out, you know, whenever. And I'm not hearing any of that.
Let me explain something about the airplanes, Your Honor. These airplanes came from the Air Force. Throughout time, since the 1960s, 70s, late 70s, no one ever has been able to operate those airplanes except the Air Force. I'm the only one that has ever been able to put it on civil registry, and I know exactly what entices to operate and to work with those airplanes. As a matter of fact, I was giving a certificate of full maintenance for that airplane. So the company that the city wants to use is not even considering disassembling it. What they're trying to do is cut the airplanes up and take them out, because it's impossible to disassemble the airplane to be later on reassembled the way it was in 6 days, Your Honor. It's impossible. On the other hand, what we were requesting from the city is to allow us to go to the tarmac that sits nearby our premises, where all the airplanes that have been down there for more than 10 years are still parked. And this is not an active runway. This is completely a dead runway. Our airplanes won't be an obstacle for anything. If they're not operating, no one goes down there. It's a closed space for active aviation, Your Honor. So the only thing that we were requesting is for the city to allow us to take them to the tarmac, to liberate the space from the hangars for them. But the only answer that Mr. Miller gave us is for us to look someplace else on other FBOs to put the airplanes. And there is no space in any other FBO, because the hangar space in this city is very scarce. There is a need for hangar space. So no one has enough space to put 10 airplanes down there. So, I mean, it's like they're sending us to the war without even a rifle. It's, you know, we cannot do anything, because the only thing they've done is putting obstacles to us.
Well, I think you're going back to putting them on the tarmac would have been to serve the purpose of repairing them.
Well, there's one airplane that's within 30 days of repair that in the time that it takes to disassemble, move the other ones, we can fix one of them and at least salvage that one to get rid of it and help subsidize everything else.
You're talking about flying it out?
Well, no, all they need is, okay, so what Mr. Hoffman's showing, and I'm trying to, I guess, I don't know if it shows on the video. It doesn't show up at all.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. That is an area, and this was the video of what's behind Mr. Hoffman's hangars. There are airplanes that have been sitting there for 20 years, abandoned. The runways are about 100 meters or 200 meters far out. There is no interference with all of those items have been removed. There is no interference with the flight runway where we're trying to ask to get out in that area when there are other airplanes that are just abandoned there that are junk. And
So what happens if you get all the 10 planes in that area?
Well, no, we're not going to get all the 10, but that's number one. There's an entrance directly north of that area where we can move the ones that are immobile. We can move them out through that area without having to cut them up, without having to try to disassemble them with whatever way they got to. But in order to pass that gate, that barbed wire gate, we need to get permission from Mr. Miller. Like we can't go past that. And so the complaints about us going in there has just always been, now if they're saying we got to give them a specific date and time of when we do it, we'll do that. And I'll make sure I write it so that there's no wiggle room so we can do it and we can start moving on that immediately.
Mr. Henry, that video kind of shows, it showed one that looks like very old plane sitting back there.
Oh, there's two.
And from what Mr. Tejas is telling me, it's an inactive runway.
No, it's not even.
It's not inactive, Your Honor. Now, we haven't received anything from Mr. Hoffman or Mr. Diaz talking about how far they want to like place planes into the outside area. What they're talking about is opening the gate and pushing it 10 feet and like as an example, and really no further, so it doesn't actually come up to the intersecting point. That's something that might be doable. I have to talk with my airport manager to figure that part out, Your Honor. But we haven't gotten any sort of proposal or anything from them. All they said is open the gate and let's put it where we want to put it. And so that's what we've been asking for, is give us your plan and we will work with you on how to move things around and a schedule of moving things around if it means getting the planes out of here. But we haven't gotten any proposal, no response. All we have gotten from them is, just open the gate. And what Mr. Tejas and I spoke about yesterday was essentially give us a plan of disassembly, give us a plan of if you need to move them, how long, how long each plane's going to need if it's for disassemble, or if you need a repair and it's a minor thing, how long is it going to be there? And then we can actually arrange for you to be somewhere on there. If it's not right in front of where the gate is, it might be someone a little further down. There are two areas of the airport right now, Your Honor, that are under kind of large scale construction, and the construction is moving to the different phases. And so they're trying to balance where the decrease in tarmac is because of the construction and where planes are going and where they haven't gone and that sort of stuff. So we need a schedule to understand what it is that it's going to take them to get the plane out, and we haven't gotten anything. That's what we have been asking for. We are willing to talk to them about that, but we need a plan.
Okay.
Your Honor, I think one of the things I wanted to present to the court is I think me and Mr. Henry agree a lot more than the court thinks we do. It's just some of these things aren't logistically. It helps if the court understands the scale and where we're at. And that's why I was trying to get the videos to you so that you could see, hey, it's not a small area, but where they're at, there are areas, like Mr. Henry says, where we can work on, and I will get with Mr. Hoffman about getting very specific time.
All right, let's go before we make a decision on the planes. The other stuff that you indicated was 90% completed and 10% is going to be done.
I hope to God it's done by Friday at the latest. I would like to say it would be done by tomorrow.
Okay, chemicals are out. What about the bonded materials, the FTZ?
I'd love to get them out soon. I just want, I need
Well,
to make sure that we get a complete itemization, and I'll talk to my client about making sure that a lot of these items need to be done concurrently, not sequentially. And so I get that part.
well, what's your time estimate on the other half of the bonded material?
I mean, it'd be nice if we get an answer on the FTZ. I mean, if we get an approval from the FTZ, customs isn't going to take very long at all.
Well, I understand that if you get the FTC application approved, which the city has already said multiple times they're not going to do.
Oh, I hope to God they deny it. I really do. I mean, I said that directly to Mr. Henry, and Mr. Henry understands where I'm coming from. If the city wants to help further my litigation, they will deny it. If the city, people in charge knew what they were doing, they would approve it. But I don't,
Is there anything-
this is where we disagree with Mr. Henry.
Is there an answer coming back on the FTC anytime soon?
I've talked with my client, Your Honor. Like I said, they've got multiple constructions and other things going on. It's at the city manager's office right now for consideration. I was told that they should have, the answer in the next few days, but depending on what the city manager is doing, I wish I could give you a better answer than that. I'm hoping sometime, in the next few days that they'll make that decision.
Well, the thing that I have to deal with right now is worst case scenario. Mr. Theus, your client doesn't get the approval. Not able to find a third party FTZ warehouse holder. I'm assuming we found the third party in the next few days, this wouldn't take more than a couple of weeks.
I agree with you. The thing is, well, without getting too much into it, I do know Mr. Henry said that he spoke to his client, told them, advised them one way or the other how they could word it if they chose to do what they chose to do. Unfortunately, my client seems to be under the impression that he hopes that it gets approved. I want to impress upon my client that he needs to operate under the assumption that they're going to deny it. And we go from there. And so I don't.
Yeah, the thing is that, at some point, I need to allow the city to go in and take that stuff out.
I would say, Judge, if we can get at let's just say we are looking at, if I say 2 weeks, okay, but just because I say 2 weeks, we run into issues like the last 2 weeks we had 3 days of rain. The next 2 weeks, we've got a federal holiday coming in. There's a chance of rain today. You've got 2 federal holidays, actually. Or no, I'm sorry, just Memorial Day.
Well, I was anticipating a little bit more time since the remedy is going to be very drastic. In this sense, the court's trying to avoid waste that, if it can. I'm willing to give you more than 2 weeks, but I think we need to have a deadline in place to allow the city to go in and exercise the remedy to warehouse.
But Your Honor, the only thing is, I would ask that we give the city a deadline to give us an answer one way or the other as well. Because that, if you give us a deadline, a hard deadline, I don't want that to turn into an incentive with the city that they can sit on their hands for the next 30 days and just say, you know what, we don't have to give you an answer on the FTC either. I'd ask the court to give me 30 days after they give their decision on the FTC. Contingent upon them. Tell me yes or no.
Today's what, 25th?
Yes. If the court's going to do it like that way, then just say the city has a deadline till the 28th to give me an answer that gives them until Friday.
Well, no, I think your initial seems more workable. Don't you think, Mr. Henry, if we put a deadline extending out from the denial or approval, obviously if it got approved, Mr. Hoffman would be happy and should be able to get it out in a matter of 10 days. But if it's not approved, I think I still can put a deadline and then allow the city to exercise its right to warehouse the remaining FTC material. And that way he still has time to look for a third party. But not knowing how long the city is going to take to either approve or deny the application. And again, I can't stress hard enough, that you, Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Day, is that you all need to operate on the assumption that it's not going to get approved. Because what's going to happen after that is that the city's going to come in and warehouse that material, and I guess to destroy it was from what I recall. So what do we do 4 weeks from the day of approval or denial to remove that? The court is going to allow or grant the city the authority to exercise.
I see where you're going, Your Honor. I think, given what the court is trying to balance, and just to confirm, we're just talking about the bonded material.
Right now, we're going to get to the planes here.
Yeah, but I think that is as best of a workable solution as you're going to be able to get.
I think so too. And that warehouse remedy is going to apply to anything else that's left there except the planes.
Okay.
The planes supporting stuff, because there's stuff that you need to disassemble. I guess I don't know if the court understands.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what Mr. Days is pointing out that some of that stuff, I guess the
There's air compressors, there's all sorts of things.
equipment is needed in the event of a dismantling of the planes that can't be removed. It needs to be there so they can expedite the removal of the planes.
Like, that's why I guess we just, when the court says, I was more in line with what Mr. Henry said about keeping it to bonded materials. Because once we start adding other stuff, it leaves open for interpretation to people that have a history of
Yeah, other stuff, yeah.
And so I would just ask to
Our technical use, our technical terminology
and
today.
so I would ask to just limit the remedy for the city. We obviously don't like it, but we have no problem with the 28 days, but just limit it to the city can go in and get the bonded items that would be subject to FTZ.
Okay, yeah, okay, and that way not to create, we're making progress, but not progress as fast as the court would have liked. And I know even more so than what the city would have liked. But at least now, I think we've effectively dealt with 3 of the 4 issues involving the eviction. And the planes really does cause me a lot of concern because in essence, I mean, sitting here right now, I'm hearing that there's been no progress since the last time we were here discussing this. But
we're still, I think the hard part we're at is we're under limitations with workforce, and it's still a big area. Like it.
so what's going to happen if you're granted, you come up with the perfect plan the city wants to see, and they say, well, that's great, you can move all 10 planes over there. You get them there. What's the plan for when they're there? Are they going to be moved out? I mean, the court kind of was already not inclined to give you the time because we were talking 90 days each. At least that was the representation for each plane to be repaired and removed. And so we're talking easily looking at another year. And we're really coming up on, now we're still a few months away, but. So what's going to happen if this next step goes as planned, that you're able to move these planes to the unused or the inactive tarmac runway. I mean, I don't think you have the time to repair them.
I think we have the time to repair maybe one or two.
Okay,
The
well,
time that it takes the other two, and that's what we were trying to work out is while we're moving the other ones, we still have one crew fixing the ones we can.
and if they get repaired, they can be
They can be
brought
taken
back and then flown out
They
or
can
what?
be taken out. The thing is, there's one that is ready just to have an engine installed.
So,
you
but what's
can't-
being done for the other 8 planes? Let's assume those
There's
planes,
about 7 that are just,
7 that are gonna be moved.
Yeah.
I mean,
depending on how long it takes.
well, I know, but what has been done, if you know for a fact right now that 7 planes have to be moved, why hasn't your client contacted Whistler or some other light company with a plan for that? Because how long is it going to take you to do this plan to move those planes to the tarmac?
It goes back to, it depends on other things. Like, do we get an FTZ zone? We're going into limited.
How does
resources.
how does that affect the planes if you get a?
We've got certain employees that work there, and that's pretty much where we're at right now. Now, if what the court is saying is, you know what, hire as many people as you need to hire and get people out, then I will confer that upon my client. It's just more of, he's got a staff of a certain number of people, and he's working within those parameters. And we're also working within a time frame of a certain number of hours per day, Monday through Friday. Like, this is not something.
If I get, I mean,
and
have you formulated this plan that you're going to pass along to the city?
I need, not completely, because I haven't had the opportunity to talk to my client completely in person since I spoke to Mr. Henry yesterday.
So how many days is that going to take?
I would say if the court gives me 2 business days. Unfortunately, I was supposed to have today free, but I got set with other cases.
No, I mean,
Like,
I don't want you to create a plan, you know. I mean, I'm willing to give you to the end of the week.
I can get a plan to the court by the end of business on Friday. Like 3
And look, so you already have a deadline for the bonded material. And I'm seeing that there's some hope that the use of this tarmac may come to fruition. So, Mr. Tellez, you need to get this plan up and running
Yes, sir.
by the end of the week, Friday, because I mean, the only other remedy that I'm seeing here, if more progress is not made toward removing these planes, is that I'm going to put a similar deadline for that on the planes as I did with the bonded material, and that'll take care of everything. Any problems with that, Henry, as far as, I mean, it sounds like there's been some contact with Mr. Tellez regarding the use of this tarmac.
Well,
that-
Your Honor, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Your Honor, go ahead.
No, I mean, is this a realistic expectation that they have, that this would solve a lot of problems?
What we talked about, Your Honor, is they can disassemble the planes in place, but if they need the tarmac and we can schedule when the plane is going to be there, it's there no longer than a certain time period, and shift them out. That's something I think we can work with, but we haven't been given any plan yet. If Mr. Tellez can get me a proposal that I can talk with the city or the airport manager about to make sure that what they're proposing doesn't interfere with anything, then I'm actually hopeful that can solve some of the problems as well. But just to make it very clear, my client was clear to me that they know that planes can be disassembled, but they also know that there are circumstances which may require them to be moved out on kind of a schedule. And they're willing to do that as long as it's moving quickly and it's not open-ended, that they can stay on the tarmac and make major repairs or anything on the tarmac area. That's
Yeah.
their big issue.
No, that's fine.
And I'm not no, yeah, and the court's not inclined to give an open-ended, which is why I mentioned earlier that the only other remedy that I see to put an end to all of this, because it is to end up doing what I did with the bonded material. But again, I mean, as I mentioned to Mr. Diaz and Mr. Hoffman, you all need to proceed, under the worst case scenario, because this has been, I mean, we've been meeting on this since March, if not earlier. And the court had made it pretty clear that everything, if the county court of law didn't make it clear that you needed to make efforts to have all material removed.
Actually, we disagree with the court's interpretation of the order that the city wrote and entered into with these.
Can I approach the court, Your Honor?
Mr. Hoffman, no, you cannot. I will talk to you after this.
Okay.
No,
Just please remind them that we need a special pass to go to the tarmac, that they revoked us our pass, and we requested that pass already long time ago, and
we've already discussed
nothing is happening. So we cannot go to the tarmac and work on those airplanes and even take them to the tarmac because we don't have that pass.
Mr. Hoffman, we've already discussed that, and that's what the court was talking about.
So, yeah, and at least, the plan needs to be to have them there in the tarmac to get ready to get moved. And my hope is that whatever the plan is, those 3 planes get fixed and get moved out. But if not, they need to be prepared to be moved as well, the same way the other 7 have been. Or else we're gonna keep coming back, and the only way I can, again, and I understand the predicament, but the court is trying to balance the interests of the city as well, and they have a right to that property, and they've had that order going since last year, and they want it. And so, all right, so the court need to clarify anything about what the plan is. Mr. Diaz, you're going to have to submit that plan by the end of the week. And I'm assuming that's going to take some time. And it's maybe has to be tweaked. So and the court's going to have to be advised, at least in part, when the application for the bonded or the FTC is either approved or denied. But that will start the clock for the city to, and for your client as well, to move the stuff out. If not, they're going to be allowed to exercise their rights to remove the bonded, the FTC material only. And I don't see how we avoid coming back a week from this Friday to see where we are with the planes. And I want to hear, Mr. Diaz, I want to hear the backup plan for having these planes removed, whether, what's it gonna cost, who's going to do it, all the details.
8 days on June the 4th.
Well, today's Tuesday, so that's 10 days from now.
Okay, I'm sorry, June the 4th.
No,
I am not available on the 4th, Your Honor.
no, I was looking at the 28th. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry.
28th is this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Available Monday the 7th.
The 7th, Mr. Henry,
Well, we're already set on June the 11th for calendar call.
with,
Judge Lopez.
what time?
9 a.m. On June 11th, we have our
What dates are you available, Mr. Henry?
Let me get my computer to start cooperating, Your Honor. I'm not available from the 4th to the 10th, so 11th, I'm available.
What about the 3rd?
I'm available on the 3rd.
Your unavailability.
I am available. I'm available on the 3rd, Your Honor.
Your unavailability sounds like a vacation.
I have a vacation letter on file and my wife will kill me if I have to move.
I will not do that to you, don't worry.
But I am available on the 3rd.
Well, let me tell you what we'll do then. It'll either be the 2nd or what about the 2nd or the 3rd? Because I do have to contend with the fact that I don't have a designated court reporter.
If we do the 2nd, can we do it in the afternoon? In the morning, I have federal court all morning and I will not. And I have.
And I prefer the afternoons because usually I have jail magistration.
The afternoon of the 2nd or the 3rd, I am available, Your Honor.
Oh, great. Okay,
Can we shoot for the 3rd in the afternoon?
3rd.
Yeah.
3rd. Okay, gentlemen. Well, we're getting there, but anything else?
No, Your Honor. I think Mr. Tejas and I just need to talk a little more as it's leading up to when he's going to be sending over the plan, so I can make sure my airport manager can review it and note if there are going to be any particular problems.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Then
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
we're in recess. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Terry, so much.
You're welcome, Judge. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.